Greetings and welcome to Second Breakfast, the second most important meal of the day. I'm Sean.
And I am Jason. Sean, what's for second breakfast today?
This week for Second Breakfast, we have me trying to do a very upbeat and chipper intro while listening to the darkest song on the Rings of Power soundtrack. We are talking about episode 7 of the Rings of Power, titled The Eye. We were supposed to be joined this week by good friends Fabio and Jesse, or Shane and Jesse from Meta Vista Media, who did the theme for the podcast. We just recorded with them for like an hour. So instead, that's going to come out this coming week between, before the series finale.
Be a bit of a bonus episode.
Yeah, a little bit of a bonus episode talking all about the music of the series, you know. I just wanted to make sure as well that they got the same experience that the other guests did. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about
their dues, dude. I mean, they made our damn theme.
Exactly.
Our juiced theme.
Let them talk a little bit more than just the music. I didn't want it to seem like they were like our dancing monkeys. Like, tell us about the music, and that's it.
No,
you know?
yeah.
So we had a good time with them. Yeah. We had a good time with them.
Yeah. It was awesome.
That'll be coming later this week. For now, this episode, The Eye, like I said, was directed by Charlotte Brandstrom, who also directed the last episode. Written by Jason Cahill, who wrote... He worked on episode 3, Adar. He didn't write it himself, but he was one of the writers on Adar on that episode.
Before we get episode.
Yeah, I liked it as well. Before we give our thoughts on this episode, I want to grab some thoughts from the Discord. Chetzel, are one of the people that has been talking with us pretty much every week.
Shoutouts to Chetzel.
Shoutouts to Chetzel. Said, I enjoyed most of the emotional beats of the episode, but found it lame that after such a cataclysmic event in the end of the last episode, most of the main cast is still alive. I think more named character deaths would have made it more impactful. Yeah, I think, Jason, you said in the Discord, like, it is season 1, like, we're not even 20% of the way through the story, so, like...
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting much in terms of main character deaths.
In a more meta sense, like, this doesn't happen in the canon. Like, it's already Mordor.
A lot of the characters that have, like, set deaths, like, this isn't it, for them. Like,
Well, I mean, honestly, even regardless of, like, obviously Galadriel has plot armor, right? Like, she's never going to actually be in danger. Unless they just are gonna completely change a
That'd
whole
be crazy.
Thing. That would be ridiculous. I think.
And then they finish the show and they're like, and this is our adaptation of The Lord of the Rings without Galadriel if she wasn't there. Like...
Yeah. That's how awful. But yeah, my point was, even like, there's obviously Bronwyn and Arondir who's already been, are they gonna die? There is something to say about the fact that really the only person who dies is Antimo, who's like who?
Comic relief. Yeah.
I did not like Antimo. I mean, it might be too soon, but I don't like Antimo.
I think to have the first death be like this kind of comic relief dude who like
he's just a good dude.
The levity of the show a little bit, or part of the levity of the show, like. While everybody else is kind of, in that plotline at least, is brooding and is considering really deep questions, he kind of represents the innocence being lost a little bit, that the most innocent of them would die first. I think there's something
when he didn't even really want to do anything anymore, right? Like, he's like saying, I'm good for a lifetime, bro.
See, that's a good death flag, Like, that's one where we didn't really think too much about it. But when you think back, you're like, he was absolutely going to die after saying that.
I think they do a lot of those, like, little flags pretty well. Like with what they do with Miriel in this episode, which we'll talk about later. I think they had a lot. On the second rewatch, I was like, geez, like, how did I not really get this? Yeah, like, they foreshadowed it multiple times, but yeah. I think also with Antimo dying, and it definitely feels like a needless death, right? I think that's going to be something very echoed by Elendil, right? Like, we can already kind of get his vibe, but we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, I can agree a bit with what Chetzel says, but yeah. When you think about it, put it in perspective that it's only 20% of the whole show or the whole show's lifespan, it makes a little bit more sense that not a lot of people have died. They got a lot of show to go.
I also think that would be a difficult scenario to pull off a death scene that, like, was satisfying to the caliber of character that you'd be killing off, right? So,
right.
Like, for example, when we were watching the episode, like, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but just for a second, like, when Theo shows up at the end back in the kind of wounded area, when we were watching it with everybody, like, some people were like, oh, she's dead, like, he's gonna find her corpse here, you know? And I was like, no, because, like, they're not gonna kill her like that off screen, and he comes back and she's already dead, you know? Like, and I think a volcano explosion, it's kind of tough to film a death scene for that, where it's not just like you find a corpse, you know? Like, if you're in a battle, you can give them a couple lines of dialogue. Like, you know, if you think about Return of the King, like, Theoden goes down, but Éomer gets a second to go over and, like, talk to him for a second, you know? It's not like he gets crushed by a flaming boulder and then he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah. You can't really get slowly. I mean, I guess there is some people who get a little bit slowly killed, but yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a more difficult scenario to pull a very satisfying death out of.
For sure. Yeah.
Mike, our guest from last week, said, good episode. I thought the Southlands to Mordor title change at the end was cheesy. Felt like I was playing Assassin's Creed or something. They didn't need to bludgeon us with it. I think I would agree with that. And I was talking about this to Jason when we rewatched it today for notes. I enjoyed the font change the most. I think if it had just been like, it stuck to the same font, but it kept, like, the name changed, I'd be with you. But I feel like, I'm pretty sure the font all across the episode has been, or all across the show has been the same for all the different areas that they go to, like, whenever they introduce the place. So I think the part that makes this, like, work is that the font becomes this kind of evil and twisted, like, red colored,
like it's like
dark font.
A burn. Yeah.
Yeah. I for me that worked, but I do agree that it is a little over the head.
Yeah, I can agree with it being cheesy, or, like, I can understand it. I don't really agree that it's cheesy, but at the same time, I can understand it, you know? I would say, as far as, like, bludgeoning us with I don't know if I agree with the bludgeoning part, because, like, if it was, like, covering the whole screen, it was like, Mordor, I could understand that, but it's in, like, the top left corner, you know? I felt like it was fine, because, like, I think more the main part of that scene is just, you know, seeing, it's the first expansive shot of everything, right? You see the volcano in the back, and just every tree is just on fire or already burnt. They're all falling over. There's a couple, like, buildings on fire still. Like, it definitely, I thought the shot was really cool. And then the Mordor thing was, like, in the top left, which to me that was more like I wasn't staring at it saying,
it wasn't the focus of the shot.
Yeah, even though I knew that's what was going to happen, I don't know. I wasn't staring at it. So I felt like it worked. And for people who don't know,
there, like, it is.
People who are just watching it, now they get it, right? Yeah. Like, it's a way to do it without him just saying, Mordor.
Exactly.
Like,
and I think I would have liked that less, which was what I was like. That's what I was about to say. Was like, if he had said,
that's not give up.
If he had said it instead, I'd be like, I don't know about this. And Swarles, also guest of the show, good friend of the show, said, I like the change of pace. I really want to see what they do with it until I really want to see what they do with it until I cast judgment. Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that I was saying last week, was like, they can't keep the same level of like hype and pace, or the same momentum that they had last week for 2 more hours. I just didn't think that was sustainable. Like, they had to slow down a bit, and I think it's a good idea to slow down a bit before we get an explosive finale. Like, okay, let's take a moment to breathe. A lot just happened. Like, we get a lot of really good character moments. Like, this is kind of transitioning into what I thought of the episode, but I really appreciated that after, I mean, last week was pretty much all fighting, like, for an hour.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that this week it was like, okay, let's, like, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, you know.
Because, like, with it being in a show format, it does have that opportunity to slow it down in between major things. Because, like, when you're watching Return of the King and you just watched, like, the Siege of Minas Tirith for, like, an hour.
Yeah.
And then it ends, like, the Battle of Pelennor ends. And then now it's like that little in-between part where you're seeing more of like Frodo and Sam and then them being like, okay, we need to march on the Black Gate or whatever. That part doesn't feel as good. You know, like it can be a bit more exhausting to watch. I think it could have worked still, even if they did keep up the pace, because it is an episodic format.
I think it could have worked. I just wasn't sure what they could do to, you know.
Yeah, I think with what happened, if you kept up that pace, wouldn't even really make sense, especially with what they're doing with the story. So being able to have it a very like human moments between, you know, Galadriel and Theo and stuff, and just everybody's reaction to it. The only thing really that I was surprised that we didn't get was like maybe like, you know, a slight tremor or something that like the elves noticed. Or something.
I
like
thought
an elf seeing it with their farsight or something, you know.
There was a shot where I was
something
convinced something was going to happen like that. I don't know. Somebody was like staring off into the distance or looking at the sky or something at one point.
It was probably when Poppy was like, she gets up to the top of the hill.
I
and
thought
she
was gonna see. I thought she was gonna see it in the distance, but So let's transition into the Harfoot storyline here.
Yeah.
Like they get there, and there's a little bit of debris from the from the explosion at Mount Doom that has kind of crushed the area that they were gonna settle and poisoned the ground. And everything is pretty much dead around it. And yeah, that was a scene where I thought like they were going to be seeing it erupting, but instead it seems like they saw the aftermath of it.
Yeah, it was more like, so I thought that they were going to be in Udun, which is where the Black Gate ends up being, which is in Mordor, right? So I thought they were going to like, you know, come up the ridge and then see, oh,
that's not
like this is all burnt. Like I thought it was going to be basically what we got in the end scene, which it makes more sense to have it be more of an end scene to see it. But especially with how, you know, the Harfoots are described, right? Like,
yeah,
seeing the event from the side would be pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I think that was probably the main moment where it would have been, oh, I thought they were going to show this. It was basically like, okay, this is another group of people seeing the explosion, but in a different way, like way more third party, you know?
Yeah. Which is kind of how their storyline has been described, like you said. So I really enjoyed the stuff with the Harfoots this week. I'm saddened by how the stranger departed.
It made me more sad than I thought it would be, right? Even though it's like obvious that that's what's happening, it made me more sad, especially because neither of them say anything. Right?
Yeah, she just kind of
holds the apple up. It's very dissatisfying. Yeah. It's very dissatisfying because like
there's no closure to it.
Yeah, there's absolutely no closure. And it makes sense that, you know, now she's going to go after him so you can get that closure later. But yeah, I just remember it leaving like a bad taste in my mouth. Not as in like, oh, I hate that they did this, but it's just like
made you sad, you know? Like,
emotionally, I'm like, oh my God, like say something. Not you guys haven't known each other for forever, but like, come on now, say thanks or friend, or you know what I mean? Like, I thought something like that was definitely going to happen. But.
Dude, I was worried just because like he was looking at her. I thought he was about to speak, and I was just like, because I'm constantly terrified that he's going to say a Gandalf line.
So I was constant state of fear.
I really, whenever he's about to speak, I'm like, don't say something that Gandalf said. Don't say something like, don't do that. I thought he was going to do that in that moment. But that started also a trend in this episode where I went, they showed us a lot from this episode in the trailer, but hid it in a way that really didn't notice. Because the shot of her handing the apple up to him was in the trailers. And him taking it. I think like even after episode 2, like we were like, we've seen everything, you know? So this episode was a funny wake up call to be like, well, there was a couple things we hadn't seen yet.
There was a lot in this episode from it, yeah.
I forgot about that, you know, but it was also edited in very clever ways to not make you realize with a couple things in other storylines. I did like the whole scene where he like made the tree heal with like the bark cracking, and you can kind of see fresh wood underneath over like this kind of burnt exterior coming out. I assume his powers, he just doesn't really know how to control them, and that's why
Yeah.
That's why, like, the branch collapses. I don't think there's anything sinister at play, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like a charred tree. It would make sense that if, like, he's splitting it, basically.
And it's also kind of this idea of, like, if it's going to grow back, you kind of need to chop off the dead limbs, you know?
That's true.
So I think maybe he just wasn't expecting them to, like, walk into the the path of where the limbs were going to be falling. So that might be a little bit on Nori's little sister there. I can't remember what the little girl's name is.
I don't remember her name.
but
I think it's like something with a D. I can't remember.
It's something. But I did like
Dilly or something.
I did like Sadek kind of walking around the tree, and as he walks away, the camera focuses in on just a little flower starting to stem out of one of the cracks in the bark that the stranger created. I thought that was a nice shot. I liked that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that they all the Harfoot have like come around, right? Like they're not, Sadok sits down, has a moment with them, and Malva's like, yeah, you need to go get him and everything. Everyone's kind of turned around to be like, you know what? We should do the right thing,
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't really thought about it, but Sadok does, when he sends the stranger away, when he tells him, hey, look, they call this place the Greenwoods. On the other side is some human town or some big folk towns. You can go there. He does it in a much nicer way than even we saw him treating, like, the Brandyfoots when they were going to kick them out, Like,
it's like they're all coming around on their philosophy.
A friendly way of approaching the stranger, which I would not have expected from these characters. And, like, you're right, they say, like, let's go after him. Like, you're not going alone to help him. And the reason they're going after the stranger is because the cultist mommies, as some people have referred to them, showed up again in this episode. Right when we finished the episode, I was looking on Twitter and I saw somebody say that they were like, when the cultists showed up on Rings of Power this week, and it was like that meme where it's like, mark me down as scared and horny. Dude, people are degenerates between like Elendilf and Aron Daddy and all this, and what was the name you called yourself with the AR?
Oh yeah. So when we do the watch together, we always make funny names and stuff, and like I think one time I was like Smeagol's loincloth or something, we just do funny stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just kind of just like a spur of the moment thing. I was like, I need to make something simping for Aarian, because I think her actress is probably the love of my life. I was like, AREN, like the letters, right? And so I put A space R space E space N, and then I put enjoyer, right? Yeah. They're like, what's your name? And I'm like, say it. And they're like, RN enjoyer? And I'm like, no, like say the letters. And I got like multiple people with it where they just immediately like AREN enjoyer. I'm like, no, faster. AREN enjoyer. Oh my God. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the Rings of Power fan base is down bad. Depressed, horny. But I really like how when Poppy notices like that their tracks for the first time, like the camera pans down to the tracks, and when it pans back up, her bucket is just rolling away, and she's gone.
Dipped.
She dipped. I thought it was interesting. The lead cultist, she has like the tips of her fingers are like stained.
They're like charred.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know what that meant. If there was some sort of like, when you use really dark magic that happens to your fingers or something.
Yeah. I do like the idea of that. Also, I don't know if it's kind of like a nod to, so like in the lore, there are like bad Numenorians, right? Who like live on the coast of Middle Earth and stuff. And they're called Black Numenorians. Where like, they are just considered to be, like black speech. Right?
Yeah. No, I got it's just unfortunate. No, I get what you're saying. It's just unfortunate is all.
It is unfortunate for sure. But I don't know if it's like a homage to that, where it's like, because their soul is darkened or something, they're becoming charred, you know? I don't know. I do like I was staring at their garb for a minute to try.
Yeah.
Not in a simping way, guys. This is for research, actually. Unironic research. I was trying to glean some information. Like, oh, is the symbol something? Like just trying, and I couldn't find anything, man.
You know what I noticed about their clothing, Jason? This is, I swear to God, this wasn't just simping. It was also just like an actual, okay. I noticed that this show in multiple scenarios have had like women in like dresses with high slits and they've got like their legs out. Like
yeah, Disa has that too.
Disa did it too, and there was one of the cultists in this episode that was doing the same thing. And I was like, oh, they've done that a couple times on this show. Okay.
There's some leg enjoyers.
There's some leg enjoyers in the costuming department.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of the cultist, it was crazy how she
does magic.
She puts out the flame.
So
and then uses that scene that we thought was from the Balrog scene.
Very cleverly edited.
Yeah. It literally just lied to us, dude.
Yeah,
you know, like. Yeah. We're thinking, like, the cultists are the one who wake up the Balrog, but it's no.
I was thinking, like, how are they going to get to Casa Doom? You know, while this scene was happening, I was like...
Right. I was thinking maybe, there's some ravine or something where it ends up going really deep or something, right?
So here's my question to you, because my understanding, and maybe my understanding is just wrong, but my understanding is that the wizards are angels, and that's why they can do magic.
Yeah, like they're Maiar, right? So
how are these? Is there magic beyond that these cultists could be doing? Because it definitely sounds like they're doing some magic. Or is the implication that they're like evil Maiar, or like they're weird? Like because
the only known evil Maiar is Sauron and Durin's Bane. There's no other evil Maiar that exists.
I don't understand how. So maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe so does magic then? Are there people that can perform real magic outside of the Maiar then in Middle Earth? Because like,
I mean, like there is magic that like the elves do. It's more like I think how they describe it in like the trivia of this. This isn't pulled from anywhere. When they do trivia and they're citing it from the book, they'll say, "Oh, book 2, chapter 4, or whatever." Right? This is not cited. This is just something where they're explaining what is going on. And there are tales of those of mankind who have learned to conjure sorceries from the dark power, and dark powers in capital.
Okay.
A far cry from the enchanting art of the elves, which are done without malice or deception.
Okay.
So this is just. Okay, this is just some really dark magic.
Yeah. Okay. So these guys are not good guys. I thought it was a little like...
it confirms that they are human.
That they're humans, yeah.
Yeah, by saying there are tales of those of mankind.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I was a little like, you guys know that he was going that direction, how? You know? Like when they're standing by the tree, they like hold the thing up and they're like, that way.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that magic. Fucking thing is magic. Maybe the toilet bowl is magic, and it's like a radar dish. Who knows?
Yeah. It does have the same symbol on it that he is looking for, as far as like the stars, right? But they don't really take it out, do they? Or no, I think
I don't think they have it out. I don't know. I know they have the other symbol out, like the fucking like thing that kind of looks like the Eye of Sauron. They have that out. But I don't know if they have the toilet bowl out. And I mean, they burned down the Harfoot place because the Harfoots try to like stop them, which like good for them, but like, ooh, pick your battles. I wouldn't have done that.
Crazy
I'm a coward.
And it must just be good editing, but when crap, what is Nori's father's name?
I don't know. Broken leg man, and my broken leg.
Largo. When Largo like puts the torch in her face, the main one, her pupils don't change.
Ooh.
And it's like, even if there was like a, like, because if you think of it in like a practical way, like, if you were putting a light there in order, like, let's just say it's a light bulb that it like imitates the flickering of fire when you're shooting that shot for the actor. Regardless, their pupil would change.
Yeah,
like it's just a
so they did
human
something.
thing.
Yeah.
Like,
it's physiology. Like,
so it when it doesn't, it's very creepy.
Yeah,
it's something that I noticed specifically where I was just like, oh my god, like that's crazy.
But yeah, they head off after the stranger, and the Harfoots. Nori's like, I'm going, and Poppy's like, not without me. And then Nori's mother, Marigold, is like, and my axe. And then the rest of the townsfolk are like, they're gonna need somebody to show them the way. And Sadok is like, God damn it, fine, okay, I'm going to. You're right. And so they set out. And another shot from the trailer of all of them walking. That I had forgotten about, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that was also from the trailer."
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
But that's where the Harfoot storyline leaves off.
I have a theory. So,
okay.
When Sadok does tell, the stranger, "Hey, there's big folk. If you go through there," he calls it the Greenwood. And the Greenwood is a place that, if you've watched The Hobbit, you actually do know the Greenwood, because that is what turns into Mirkwood, right? So he's basically saying, "Hey, go through the Greenwood. Once you get through the Greenwood, then you'll be able to find them." Well, I think, knowing who is there at that time, I think he's going to run into some elves.
Ooh.
And I think we're finally going to run into some more of the lower class elves.
Okay.
Specifically, there's a king named Orifer, who most people probably don't know, but his son, if you've watched The Hobbit, is Thranduil. So,
isn't that is that not Legolas's dad?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I swear to God, if they force Legolas into another story that he's not supposed to be, no, I'm kidding. Oh shit! Hi, Mike. We're recording. Here we go. Cameo appearance from Michael SpikeGhetti in the podcast. You're not going to be able to hear him. All right, Mike is now gone. I hope everybody said hi, Mike, out loud wherever they're listening. Well, they could,
even though they couldn't hear him.
Yeah,
and we probably cut out most of that.
Yeah,
if not all of it.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to keep in. Oh, Mike's here. I'm going to keep that part in because that's funny.
Yeah. Basically, what I was saying is, I think that on the way through the Greenwood, he'll run into the Sylvan Elves, and because that's who's supposed to actually be. Obviously, the Second Age has been very much compressed, but throughout the entire Second Age, pretty much, Orifer is, the king of it, and I think it'd be a good way to bring in some more elves or whatever, even if it's just for a little bit, right? Like they see him and then they help him or something like that, and it would make sense for him to be able to become more of a person or whatever with the help of the elves. And I just think it'd be cool, see more elves, and especially because it's like the Greenwood and Mirkwood and all that, like it's not something that is very much shown very much or even written about very much. So it'd be cool to see more of that place brought to life on screen.
So actually, before we move on to the elves and dwarves, I do want to, since this is the episode before the finale, I gotta leave you with like a question on this storyline, and that question is: next week, will there be a either direct or indirect reveal of the stranger's identity, and if so, who will it be?
I mean, if he does run into elves, it would make sense if they gave him the name like Mithrandir or something, or if they were able to help him in some way. It would make it very much more high fantasy if they were able to do something that, some elven healing that unlocks his memory or something, and then he goes, "My name's
Mithrandir."
Well, that's the name that they give him, but like if they help him or whatever, and he says what his name is, then obviously I don't know. I would find it I would be hard pressed to figure out what his name is, unless the cultists do catch up to him and they're like, "Yo, Sauron, what up?"
Yeah.
I think those are the only two ways we fully find out who he is. Unless they just give him a name and then they go, "Oh, Radagast," or something, right? But
my I think we're gonna know indirectly or directly who it is. Like, and by indirectly I mean they're gonna give enough clues that the creators will feel comfortable in interviews going, "That is who this is."
Well, and I guess that's something we didn't talk about either. It's like the fact that he is in tune with
nature,
animals, and nature. Yeah, that leans way more towards him being Radagast, who is somebody who really cares.
He kind of wears
nature.
a brown cloak already, like
yeah.
What I think is most likely to happen is he's going to say a Gandalf line next episode, and that's going to be their way of indirectly
See, I don't
saying
think
that he's
so.
Gandalf. I really hope not, but like that's my worst fear.
It just wouldn't make sense for him to go from not knowing what the word peril means to saying some grandiose Gandalf.
I don't think it's going to be a grandiose line. I think it's just going to be something that he says in the movies or maybe in the books to be like, this is Gandalf. But you mentioning that, maybe they never call him Gandalf in the show. Maybe when they find elves, they call him Mithrandir, and he's known as Mithrandir for the entire show. Who knows? But what I hope happens is they get into a big fight with the cultists. We see a cool magic duel, and his robe gets burned. And, he's like, "Oh, I need a new robe." And and they're like, they have like their Harfoot like carriages, and they're like, "Well, we have this robe that might fit you," and it's a blue robe, and they put it over his shoulders. And he's like, "Yes, this does fit me. You're right." And that's the reveal that he's a blue wizard. He wears a blue robe. That's probably not going to happen, but I hope it does. Moving on to the elves and the dwarves, I opened this section, Jason, by asking in big fight night, the Grand Slam, SmackDown, Second Age, whatever year it is, which Durin do you got?
Oh, Durin versus Durin?
yeah. In the big
I don't know,
SmackDown.
Man. Durin the Third, he's pretty old, dude.
Things are not good. Things are not good here in in Khazad-dûm. There's like a civil war on the I don't know about civil war, but I definitely get the feeling that like by
you're
the end of
Game
this
of
episode,
Thrones mind right now.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna like kill each other.
Sean was like, he's gonna kill him, isn't he?
As soon as I said that, I was like, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But what I do think is more possible is, I mean, Disa kind of talks about it. She's like, if we can prove it, like the rest of the dwarf lords or whatever will be on our side. And I could definitely see a scenario where Durin the Fourth ousts Durin the Third as king in a similar thing to what like happened in Numenor. Did they talk about like how the king's daughter is still ruling Numenor, but they pushed the king off the throne because they didn't agree with what he was, his values and stuff.
Like they forced him to abdicate.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody is like I don't see. I mean, by the end of this episode, he's no longer the prince. Like he, or at least the king.
He's
doesn't
no longer
consider
the
him
heir.
The heir. I guess he's still technically prince, but he doesn't. He's like, take that thing off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really think something bad is going to happen next episode to Durin the Third. Whether it's, I mean, you mentioned, are we watching? Maybe the stress just gets to him and he has like a heart attack.
It could be like a Odin type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He just, something happens, he gets very stressed out, and then it's just poor timing. He goes into a coma or something,
All I know about Durin versus Durin is that Disa is confirmed Sauron after this episode because she was in Prince Durin's ear the entire time being like, your dad doesn't deserve this. You should be doing what's happening. I thought that was a different side to Disa than
I like her raging right when we see her, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said he had lice in his beard. And
yeah.
You can tell it very much feels that it's like this is something they have gone through multiple times as a couple, right? And like her being able to be like, okay, yeah, I was wrong, dude. And then it being followed up by Owen like just acting his fucking heart out, dude. he made me single-handedly. He made me forget that I hate this beat of the story, dude.
Yeah. When he like starts
by
cheering
himself
over the, you're like, oh, you're so happy for him, and then I'm like, wait, I hate what's happening. You know,
right?
Like he does give out a standout performance, I think. So let's talk about like the thing. He tosses the mithril after he's given up hope, like he can't help his friend, and the mithril cures the corruption on the leaf.
Yeah, which I hate.
Yeah,
because I was hoping there was a sliver of hope that Gil-galad was lying.
Yeah,
that like,
or that maybe he had been lied to, or there was some trick being played on somebody.
Right, maybe it's not true that this thing is happening because it's not in the canon.
Yeah,
but I won't be that guy. So I did, even literally witnessing the thing that I don't want to happen, between the music swelling, the look Disa gives to Durin, and then he's like, just the pure emotion from going from complete despair to like righteous anger, or like, I'm gonna do the right thing. And he's like, Elrond! Like, I was like, oh my gosh, it was so emotionally stirring. It was crazy. Even though I hate it.
The only argument I could think of is that they want a shortcut to why the rings are made. You know, like a compelling reason for the audience. But even then, I'd say like, okay, fine. You have a lot of stuff you have to do. And I mean, you have 5 seasons to do it, but really it's a lot to cover. I get why you would want like a quick and easy way as to, because clearly they're going to make the rings because they want to bathe themselves in the mithril to save themselves from being fucking fading or whatever. Like that, like as soon as you see what happens to that ring or to the leaf, you're like, okay, I know what this plot is. I know what you're doing. But like, we had half an episode of Numenor stuff a couple episodes ago that was like unnecessary. And we had, I mean, you could get like another half an episode out of all of these leaf fucking corruption scenes. Like there are places I would rather have had them cut to make room for a good explanation for why the rings are made over this weird plot line that I just really don't like.
I just had a thought about it, and we'll have to talk about it later during the Southland section.
Okay.
But yeah, I can agree that it definitely does feel like it's a reason for the elves to be vested in what's going on. Give them a reason to care. I don't particularly like it. I think you can have other ways of doing it.
This seems like a cheap and easy way to do it to me.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think it would even be lame, even if you weren't like coming up with some other thing. I think, you know, the elves being vested in the strength of Middle Earth and
they live here.
People, yeah, like
they live here, bitch.
Sense.
Like, you know, like
they are the good guys. Like, yeah, they don't always make the right choice all the time, but they're pretty consistently the good guys. You know?
Cosmically aligned heroes of the story. You know,
right?
Like God sent them. You know, like But, I mean, this whole storyline is saved by, again, like we said, Durin's performance pretty much, and the bromance between Durin and Elrond is just off the fucking charts. Like,
yeah, dude. Especially the scene where Elrond is, like, basically telling him, hey, I lost on purpose.
Dude, oh, that was so good.
Yeah, dude. It also makes more sense, because I felt like Elrond didn't seem like he was super tired, and he kind of just gives up or whatever. Yeah. That's what it felt like, right? Yeah. There was no perspiration on him, really. He's not all dirty or nothing. And I thought, oh, maybe it's just like a makeup thing. Like, they just didn't really, I don't know. But yeah, that's literally how real friends would act too. You know, when you tell your friend, oh yeah, I let you win. And they're like, you're lying. Yeah. Right? Like, it really felt like they're real friends. It reminds me a lot of like the Legolas and Gimli drinking game. Right, where the dwarf is just like, yes, I bested you, when they clearly haven't.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's clearly what they're trying to get across from this episode, like this relationship. Like, I'm sure there was a studio note at some point where they were like, "Can we get a dynamic like Legolas and Gimli?" And they were like, the creators were like, "Thankfully, yes, you can." You know, we have that exact thing available for you. Like, it doesn't feel forced to emulate that dynamic. It feels like something where, like, it lined up, that it was something that I'm sure studio wanted.
It's not there. Yeah, it's not canon at all, but it is
works,
cool.
You know?
Yeah, it is cool. You could have had, canonically, Durin the Third and Celebrimbor have a good friendship. But yeah, obviously Durin the Third has taken a very different approach. Also, in that scene with Durin and Elrond being friends is my favorite line of the episode, where Durin is saying, like, I always thought you were might dwarvish for an elf, you know? I just really liked that line, how he delivered it.
I really liked when he was saying, like, we have secret names that we share with, like, our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, and our brothers. And he was clearly going to tell Elrond his secret name, but Elrond stopped him, and I wasn't sure exactly why. Like, the way he says it, he says, what did he say? He says, save it for the far side.
Yeah, I'm not sure what far side means.
I don't know what that means. Because, like, it seemed like the trope was, like, friend is going to say something to another friend before they die, but the other friend is like, don't say it after we make it out of this. Yeah. But I don't know that the situation warranted that kind of moment. You know, like, I guess maybe they are digging, so, like, maybe the tunnel will fucking collapse on them at any point and kill them both. But I don't know that it stresses that enough.
I think the reason, and more meta reason, is because, one, I don't think it's like a canon thing that, like, is known, and then B, I think it's because if they are going to end up revealing it, it might reveal what's going to happen later between Durin and the certain Balrog.
Yeah, that's down there. So they slam away that piece of rock, which while we were watching it, I held my tongue because, like, I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to ruin the moment. But thankfully, Iron Aggro said it first. Holy shit. It doesn't matter because it was the tiniest little scene ever, but when it cuts to, like, when you see the rocks fall away from the inside, it is the worst piece of CGI in the entire show.
Yeah.
Like, it's clearly this one shot where they were like, fuck it doesn't matter, just send it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and it's okay, I'm not, like, deducting points or anything from the episode for it.
Yeah.
I was so taken aback, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna say it. And then Iron Aggro said it, and I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God somebody else did. You know?
I didn't really notice it. I'm not somebody who really
notices that kind of thing.
CGI, unless it's, like, terrible. Like, I think that was passable. It wasn't great.
I think
watching it the second time, I notice it more, but
I think in a different show it would have been less noticeable, but since the CGI in this is so top notch,
it's been so pristine.
Yeah. And then we get this, like, they get discovered by the king, and we get this beautiful scene I don't know about beautiful, but very great scene between the king and the prince, where, like, the, you know, disinheriting kind of happens, not fully, but kind of. And I really, you know, this really touching story about when Prince Doran was a baby, and then
I love that,
which is a great moment. But then my favorite moment of the episode, I think, is when King Doran says, like, you've betrayed your own people for an outlander, and Prince Doran says, it's you that betrayed your own kind. He says another line, but I wasn't able to write it down. But then he says, you profane the crown you wear, and I was like, like, that relationship boiled over the top, and I could tell that like that is when the, like, thing that Doran wears gets torn off. But, like, I could tell when he said that, I was like, this is the breaking point for their relationship, at least for now, you know? I thought it was really good. I really liked that point. And then, obviously, another scene from the trailer that was just, you know, cut very well. We thought it was the cultists that wake up the Balrog. The scene reads differently to me now.
Yeah.
To me, it reads as King Doran, like, he sees the mithril mine, and he throws the leaf in and tells them, like, hey, close this up, make sure nobody sees it. And then the leaf flies down into the bottoms of the cave, and we see the Balrog because it burns the leaf up. My take now is not that the leaf awakens the Balrog, it's that the Balrog is just chilling in this cave system down here, like, it's hanging out, and the leaf happens to land near it and burn up. And I think that the king probably knows the Balrog is down there, and that's why he doesn't want them digging further.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I don't really like how, okay, for one, I gotta give props where props is due. The actor for Durin the Third is so good. I don't know how he has such a gravelly voice, but also has such deepness to it. It's insane. Like it has to be edited. Like it has to be heavily edited. There's no way, but it still sounds so like natural for a dwarf. But yeah, if they don't give me a reason as to why Durin the Third doesn't want, and I'm gonna really hate it if it's because his mother died trying to go mine for Mithril or whatever, because it's like you would be changing, like they say that Disa found it when they were doing the resonating or something. So like that one, it makes sense. And also, the thing I hate is because that's how your parent died. While makes sense, like realistically, we've already kind of got that massive trope.
With Isildur and Elendil, we have a little bit of that there, and so that's like
right.
Okay, we don't need to do that in multiple places.
Yeah, so if they don't give me another reason as to why he doesn't want the Mithril to be mined, it seems really stupid. And then to the point where he would even dethrone his heir over one fight over it. Well, obviously, like it's something they butt heads on before, but like literally a couple episodes ago, they had like a very touching moment where he, he apologized and he was like, I'm with you even when you're angry, right? And I don't know. It just seemed very, very different, very jarring. I don't know if I really like that. Like, I don't really like Durin the Third because of it, unless they give me a reason as to, he does know that there's something down there. His reasoning is that, the fate of the elves was decided by somebody other than me. And it's like, well, no, you're kind of actively making a decision right now that affects their fate, I
don't know. I think I see his reasoning in a different way. I think I see it as him being like, this is the natural course of things, and we're looking for an unnatural way to extend it. Like I actually liked his argument of like, all people must die. This is the natural death. If they were going to die
naturally, but they're not. They're gonna die all in spring.
Yeah, but I get his argument of like, hey, this is like the timer that was kind of put on them. Like, like this mechanic for their death was placed into the world by God, and I'm not gonna look for a way to circumvent God's will, is how I read it. And I think he's probably wrong about like I really hope that like the time of the elves isn't naturally coming to an end, that somebody, Sauron or some dark force, has corrupted it and is like hastening it along at a time where it's not supposed to be happening. But I get his point of view, as at least where he thinks that this is like what's supposed to be happening, and we're meddling as humans, or not humans, but as mortal beings.
As dwarves.
Let's move on over to the big meat and potatoes of this episode, the survivors, the Southlands. The first shot of the episode, holy fuck. Like, just, it's a close-up on Galadriel's eye, and like, first of all, just to get it out of the way now, the costume design, the makeup team, and the set design for this episode, whenever they're in the destroyed Southlands, is incredible. Everybody is covered in soot. Everybody looks like they just went through a volcanic eruption. The place looks like hell. Like, I bought it. I bought it completely. I thought it was 100%. Done so well.
I literally have a note where I said, I don't know how the hell they did the sets for the ash-ridden place. Like, it's insane. I don't know how you could do a set large enough to have all these things happen.
Yeah. So there's a couple different plot lines going on in this mini plot lines. Let's talk about Elendil. So obviously Antemo's dead, but kind of the lead up to before we see Elendil, we see Miriel, and she is with, I always forget his name.
Isildur?
No, well, she's with Isildur and
Valandil.
And then they go into like, there's a house that's about to collapse, and there's people inside. And
I'm really not talking about Antemo's death, dude.
Well, because we already talked about it. Is why I was. And they go, they save these people, and then the house collapses on top of Isildur. So first of all, Isildur is dead. Sorry, I couldn't even. Yeah, he's not dead.
Well, okay, so yeah, obviously he's not dead. I don't know how the hell he isn't.
Yeah.
Like, I remember earlier in the season being like, I don't know how Arondir gets out of this.
Yeah.
He gets set free. Unless something similar happens where he is captured and enslaved and then they break him free, and that's what Elendil's reasoning for wanting to come back is to save his son. If in some way he finds out, I don't know how he would. Like, there's a bunch of question marks, but I don't know how he lives. He's in the middle of a burnt town that the orcs know. They literally were just there. Like, I don't know. Even if he survived the falling, burning building, surrounded in ash, he was already coughing his lung out before. Like,
yeah.
Okay, the only thing that I can think of, and I think that this is what might happen, is when it collapsed, the floor collapsed underneath him and he went down into the tunnel.
Oh,
and that's
dude,
what
you're
saved
absolutely
him.
right. That's what happened. No, I think you just nailed it. I think you just keybladed this. Where
again,
that episode is, I bet that next episode starts with it. You know what I bet? I bet next episode starts with Isildur falling down into the tunnels, and we get a little bit of what was going on with Hallbrand and Adar during the episode because those are the two characters that we don't really follow, and they don't really show up until the very end. I bet we see a little bit of how they survived and what they were up to through Isildur falling into the tunnels and having his own adventure. I think that's what's gonna happen. But in that scene as well, Miriel gets blinded, and we didn't pick up on it the first time through. Like, you can clearly see on a rewatch when it happens.
Yep.
When the building collapses and she gets like some sparks and smoke and like flame like smashes into her eyes.
Yeah.
And as you follow the rest of the scene, like we have a great moment where Elendil's actor kills it, just like
he's
Durden's
so
does.
Good. He's stupid good.
Like, the first time we see him, you mentioned it when we were watching it the first time, he looks like he's aged a decade.
Yeah.
You know, like in a single day. Like, he looks completely broken. He sees Barrick walk by.
Well, that's not when I felt like he aged a decade.
Well, I still felt like even then he had aged a decade. Like, even looking, I still felt he looked older and hurt, and like,
yeah.
I feel like you kind of saw him when he saw Barrick like chipper up a little bit, and like I thought I saw that flame return to him because it looks like Isildur is with Barrick, but that obviously it's not because Isildur is in the tunnels right now, as Jason just fucking nailed. You see it again, like his kind of. I think he's trying not to break too hard yet. He's trying to hold out for hope, but I don't know. I don't think it's good. But then Miriel,
like he's definitely gritting his teeth. You know, like where is he? Where is he? Like. It's under the guise that he's looking for survivors, but really he's looking for his son out of all the survivors. And he's like, oh, Isildur! And then it's not. And then you see it just kind of breaks him. And then immediately after, there's Valandio, and then there's the first foreshadowing, or just literally they just show it pretty much, that Miriel is blind, because she's just wide-eyed.
Yeah.
And just staring straight forward. But to me, the first time I read it as she is grieving for Elendil, right? Because
they show Valandiel as well grieving, and they have a similar look on their face, and you're like, okay, that's what's happening.
Right. It's very, very tricky.
It is.
But then they change this isn't about Miriel. This is about Elendil being like, where is he?
Yeah.
Like, where is my son?
Yeah.
And then the next scene we see, he looks dead inside.
Yeah, he's gone.
Like, I don't know. How would you even get yourself as an actor to the point where you can even look like that? Like, that's insane to me.
I don't know. It can't be good. It can't be good for your mental health.
Right. Like, I'm so impressed by it.
Yeah.
By this actor, dude. And then another foreshadow, which is right before the reveal. I remember thinking, there's this branch where Elendil ducks under it, and then he sees that the queen isn't really doing anything. Like, it almost hits her in the face. It doesn't, but it almost does.
She doesn't even move away from it.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, oh, that's weird. Like, maybe it's just a weird camera angle thing. But even Elendil is thinking, oh, that's weird.
Why is that happening?
But I didn't pick up on that the first time either. But then when she says, oh, how much longer? And then she's like, oh, how much longer until we're out of all the ash? And he's like, or all the smoke and stuff. And he just looks at her like, and that's when, everybody realizes what's happening. And I thought that it was really well done.
Yeah, I really thought that was incredible. Because, like, you see that scene and you think, like, okay, it's just some weird framing of this branch, whatever. Like, your immediate thought isn't, oh, she's blind. But, I mean, then the reveal comes and boy, oh boy, is she.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fascinating, I think that is a fascinating thing for a character that I'm excited to see how it develops going forward. But I also think that it's pretty interesting kind of meta stuff where, like, a lot of the actions she took was because of things that she saw in the Palantir.
Aw, dude.
And now she can't see it.
And then what her father said. Mm-hmm. He says, don't go to Middle Earth. And he's like, all that awaits you is, and she's like, what awaits me? And then he says, darkness. She can't see, bro.
Yeah.
That's wild.
There's some very good foreshadowing with that.
That's wild. Also, immediately at that scene where she's like, Elendil, like, just walk forward. And he is just in the depths of despair.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how he could have got lower. Like, I'm seeing him originally, and I'm like, how are you this low? And then he got even lower. He's just breaking, knowing his queen is blind and his son is dead. Like, he failed his family and his duty, is what he's thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just, oh my God, dude. Crazy. And then you immediately see him later with, immediately despairing for pulling Galadriel.
Yeah, I should never have pulled her onto that boat. I love the stoicism because also Valandil understands it. They can't react to this news that they've just discovered.
Yeah.
Like, they really can't. They really can't let on that the queen is blind yet. They have to wait until they're like things can settle down a little bit, and then we can tell people.
Yeah.
But I think that both actors play that stoicism very well. That is required of them. You can see that. You can tell that it is people trying not to freak out because it's their job not to freak out.
Yeah. It very much humanizes them. And I guess if we want to go jump towards the end of the South, just to put a wrap on the whole Miriel Elendil thing. Like, by the end of the episode, you get this feeling that Elendil, like, hates elves already. Like, he already hates them.
Yes.
And then Galadriel feeling that and the guilt, I think was very good. Like, I could see a world where they don't really, especially with how her character's been, not really feeling that guilt or whatever, because she literally was doing the same thing with her own people, with the elves, like leading them to needless deaths pretty much, right? Just looking for this unconfirmed dark sorcerer Sauron, and so her, actually having that arc where she's feeling all the guilt, she's already crying, and then Miriel going, no, fuck that evil, they don't know what they started, we're gonna come back.
I love it. God, she's such a badass, dude. I'm totally sold on her character by the end of this episode.
True.
Where I'm like, okay, you're a badass. I'm fucking with it. Like, let's do this thing. There is a scene in between those two where, and I bring this up because I think it's important to a theory I'm about to present to you. Okay, Jason? Okay. So when Elendil is talking to Beric, like, he's talking to the horse and he's like, hey, like, you're coming home with us. And everybody's like, dude, he's not going to listen to us. Like, he's freaked out. His rider, his rider's gone. And so Elendil lets Beric go. So here we go. I'm going to play with the timeline a little bit because we don't know exacts about when people appear and when people are reunited. Here's my theory. He lets Beric go. Beric finds Isildur, which I think is pretty obvious what's going to happen. Like,
yeah, it's very much, it's the same thing that happens in the Two Towers.
Yeah. But I think Beric is going to find Isildur when Halbrand is trying to kill Isildur because Isildur stumbled onto something he shouldn't have. And I think I think that Isildur, so because if Halbrand is going to be Sauron, he can't be the king of the Southlands. So I think what's going to happen is I think Isildur is going to be the first person to discover that maybe not that he's Sauron, but that he's not above board, that something is wrong. And Halbrand's going to try to kill him. And Beric is going to save him. And then Isildur is going to show up back with the rest of the Southlanders and the Númenóreans that are still around. Because we also were told that a battalion of the Númenóreans are going to stay behind in Middle-earth.
Right.
And he's going to be the one to tell them that, like, hey, we need to come up with our own system of government because, like we need a different leader because this dude's evil, you know? And maybe there's some conflict there or whatever. Or maybe Halbrand never returns from his trip to Linden. But I think that there's going to be a reveal of some sorts that Isildur, because I think this would also kind of parallel with one day Isildur and Sauron are going to face off in the Last Alliance. So I think it would be neat to have like a moment
that would be cool
where Beric saves Isildur from Halbrand because Isildur stumbles into something that he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And so my timeline with this would just be that like after that happens, that's when Halbrand is found by the Southlanders, because Bronwyn mentions that like we stumble. I think she mentions that they stumbled onto them not long before she brings Galadriel to him. Like he hasn't been there for a super long time. And that could explain his wound. Like maybe Halbrand stabbed him. Halbrand. Maybe Isildur got a blade through him.
To me, I was more thinking that
I think either he got stabbed by
Adar did.
That's what I was saying. I think he either gets stabbed by Isildur or by Adar. My initial thought had been Adar, but as I was thinking about like the horse and stuff and like what a very dramatic moment could be and like how are we going to get certain people to realize that Halbrand isn't above board, I think that could be another possibility. I don't know that that's what's going to happen, but I think it would be an interesting way to unfold things next episode. I'm trying to.
I do like the theory, especially because it's, yeah, they said that they found him on the road yesterday, and the wound soured overnight, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, I do like the theory that Isildur, he ends up living somehow. Beric finds him. He gets free, and then he ends up seeing an interaction between Halbrand and Adar or something.
Ooh, maybe that's what happens. Maybe he sees Adar stab Sauron. Or Sauron, Halbrand. He sees Adar stab Halbrand. But he sees that they have like a relationship that like maybe even in that moment Adar calls Halbrand Sauron, Like
Yeah. Yeah, if there is a scene where it's like, Adar, because there's the scene but in the episode prior where he's like, who are you? Right?
Yeah.
And then he realizes who he is or something like that.
Maybe he's like, I mean, it would be fucking great if we got a scene of them together and Adar's like, dude, I told you, I don't know who you are. And Halbrand's like, oh really? And then he says some shit and Adar's like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Adar's like, I thought I killed you. I want the realization. I want to see the moment where Adar shits his pants because the Dark Lord of Evil is still around. And you only pissed him off, like whether it's Halbrand or not, whether it's just somebody else. And like, I want to see the moment when Adar realizes that there's an even bigger bad after his ass,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, now okay, so now that we're on the is Halbrand Sauron, I think I'm more towards the idea that he is Sauron. I'd say he's probably candidate number one that's not Mr. Outside Hire. Yeah. I think he's my number one candidate right now. Between, just the fact that he is going to the Elves.
He's going to Linden.
He's going there. And we need to set up somebody showing up to incite the rings being made, right? But the thing... I don't know. Earlier in the episode, I went, "Oh my god!"
Yes, you did. Okay, is it time for that?
In a previous episode, Halbrand goes like, so I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact line. he goes, like, find out what their problem is.
Oh.
And then she goes, and use it against them. And he goes, no. And then give them a means to master it.
Oh, shit.
So if that's what he's doing in Aragian, yeah.
He's gonna...
sense. He finds out what their problem is. Oh, they're dying because of the tree. He gives them a means to master it, aka
making rings.
The elven rings. Yeah. But that would change how the elven rings, like he didn't know that the elven rings were made, because Celebrimbor makes them, canonically Celebrimbor makes them on his own, and that's why they're inherently good.
And then the rest of them are the ones where...
Yeah, so like when he puts on the one ring, the elves who have them on have to take them off, or he's gonna like dominate their mind.
Yeah. But they have warning, and they're not like immediately corrupted.
Yeah, it's not instantly. They're like, oh my gosh, like I feel this dark presence, like take the ring off or whatever, right? And so it would end up changing that quite a bit. I don't know how I would feel about that, but it would track and make sense with what we've heard of from Halbrand. Or now this is like another layer of conspiracy.
Yeah, okay. This is the time to do it.
He does, right? He does say the thing with the rings, but because he isn't Sauron, Sauron doesn't know.
Okay. But
in being the person to say that, people would think he is Sauron, but then he isn't. So it could be either. Yeah. Because everybody is sitting here chomping at the bit for somebody to say, "Oh, we could make some rings."
Yeah.
Because then everyone's gonna be like, "Sauron, that's Sauron. That's freaking Sauron."
I don't think that's going to be how they reveal it.
So if you had the first person to say it, not actually be, but like there's so much stuff where you would think they are, that'd be pretty clever.
That'd be pretty good. So, okay, here's the while we're on the subject, before we move on to Galadriel and Theo, which is like the last part of this episode that I think we'll talk about. So since we're on the topic of Halbrand, is he Sauron, is he not? Before next week, I want to get from you, do you not like, because you already said like who you think like the most likely is in terms, like you gave your ranking already, but do you think they're going to reveal it next week? Will by the end of next episode we know either directly or indirectly, like I said, like enough evidence to the point where the creators feel comfortable in interviews saying, yeah, that's Sauron. Like, do you think that's going to happen by the end of next week?
I think so. I hope so, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's Rings of Power. You're at this point, I don't think, unless what I said happens, and it happens very quickly, and also it would happen in a way where this doesn't really feel like a season finale. Like, this is more of like a political type thing, a very like subterfuge type of way. I don't feel like it would really fit. So to me, I think it's more you find out who it is. Like, I don't know. I think that's the only thing that I think would... When you have a season finale, it's gotta be a banger. I think that finding out who Sauron is the only substitute to, hey, the Rings of Power are now in play. You know, like, not necessarily in play, but like the idea of them has now started.
And honestly, I think
it's one of those two to me.
I don't think the rings are enough. I think even if it was just the rings, that would be underwhelming. I think the rings in combination with the stranger and maybe some shit happening in Khazad-dûm would be enough. But I think that like the rings on their own, I don't think is enough of a thing.
Well, I'm saying if the rings are part of the finale, right? Like the idea that we can make them, then it would also be like you would then know who Sauron
That's
is.
True. You're right. Okay.
So if it isn't that, then just the Sauron reveal, I feel like is what it would be. Maybe I worded it poorly, that's what I think.
Yeah.
It's one of those two, if not both, right?
I think
that's the only thing. I think if it's the stranger reveal, I'm kind of sleeper. Unless he is Sauron.
If it's just the stranger reveal, yeah.
Yeah, if it's just, oh, he's Gandalf, or oh, he's a blue wizard.
Because not only is it kind of a sleeper reveal, it's a bad reveal too if it's Gandalf.
Yeah, because they've just...
yeah.
And I do like the idea that they do this back and forth thing where you're like, oh, the stranger's definitely Sauron. Oh no, he's definitely good. Oh no, he might be now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, he's definitely good now. Like the trees growing and stuff would definitely be something where it's like, oh, he's definitely good.
And
I just think
thematically
there's no way.
Yeah.
Because of how they explained the Harfoot story.
Yeah.
In a more meta way. And also, the good deeds that these people are doing are now going to be what ends up making the Dark Lord
just
appear.
Seems wrong, yeah.
Yeah, feels incredibly wrong. Even if it's like the cultists are completely corrupting him, it's still an ABC of they help him and save him and everything. Then the cultists corrupt him, and then he's Sauron. Like it's still a you can still trace the line, dude.
We'll find out on Thursday.
Yeah, I want the Sauron reveal. If it's just the wizard.
Yeah.
I don't know, bro. Yeah. I can't even think. Elf story? Just the
forging of the rings. Dwarf story, some sort of conflict between Durin and Durin.
I don't even think I would care. Like, that would have to be compounded with something else to me.
I think it would be compounded. No, that on its own. It definitely... I think all of these things need at least one other thing to happen.
I think if it was just the Sauron reveal, I'd be content. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, I think
obviously other things are going to happen.
What if they get back to Numenor and it's like fucked?
that
we're gone for 3 days.
That would be a decent reveal if like they come back and Farazan is like just done a complete
arrest
coup.
them. They get off the boat and they're like, yeah, I don't know. We'll find out next week. I'm sure that they've got something up their sleeve. Let's talk about Galadriel and Theo, a great grouping that I would not have predicted. But
the most unlikely pairing.
Really, really works. And we get the line. We get the line where Theo asks who's died, who she's lost to the shadow. And she says, my brother and my husband, Celeborn.
Yeah. I was so shocked when they said that. I was like,
we all went, oh, fuck. Now, immediately as she started talking and she was like, he went off to war and he never came back, is essentially the story she tells. In my head, I went, oh, okay, so he's alive.
Yeah, no, that's also how I wrote it, or I read it as well. Apparently I wrote it. But also in the trivia, they also say Celeborn was a kingsman of Thingol, Greycloak of Doriath, the king of the elves in the First Age. And that's from Appendix B. Mm-hmm. He was last seen marching to war from which he never returned, but his exact fate remains unknown.
Yeah, so he's alive.
Like, when you add but his exact fate remains unknown, that means, you know who's showing up in season 2?
Celeborn! And apparently when a hooded, because that also got announced.
Bruh. If Celeborn is in the Greenwood, because it makes sense. Like he marches off, and then maybe I don't know. He forgets he gets concussed. He doesn't know. He doesn't have any memory or something. Mm-hmm. I could see that as well, and that would also be a cool way in order to see a romance between Galadriel and Celeborn happen in a later season, like maybe a season 3 type deal where they're already married, but like they have to fall back in love again or something, Yeah. That would be interesting. But yeah, if he was in Mirkwood, that'd be super dope.
Yeah, I don't buy that Celeborn's dead for a second.
Definitely
not at all.
I really like
her acting in that scene, though.
Yes,
she does a really good job of pulling off somebody that's like lost in a memory.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of staring off. And like Theo says something to her and she kind of responds, but like physically she doesn't really. I think it's done very well.
Yeah. And all of their interactions where she's, basically parenting him.
Yeah.
All the things she says.
Him stuff she needs to hear.
Exactly. Everything that she says is definitely something that she's also saying to herself. There was one line, though, where I was like kind of suspect, where she's saying like it's her fault, right?
Yeah, and she said it's my fault, yeah.
And obviously it's like, oh yeah, because she incited this war of them going, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it almost made me feel like, because obviously he would still get destroyed regardless, right? Like, what would have happened is, they would have.
Adar would have been the one to put the sword in if they hadn't shown up, because there would not have been any sort of
right.
Like
they would have all just been slaughtered in the bar or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, it's like how she looks at him, and like she should have to know that this was going to happen to him regardless. Mm-hmm. But she still says that it's her fault, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's not even a Númenórean. So it makes me think just a sliver that maybe before she came back to Linden, I don't know. It makes me feel like maybe she did something wrong in the past or something, right?
I kind of think, so she also says at the end of the episode that she's going to go face judgment from the High King, which makes me think that she views, the basest viewing of the reading of this that I have is she thinks that she now at this point has fallen onto the side of Gil-galad and is like, I should have gone to Valinor. She's like, he's right that about like the flame, like he was right about me, that I needed to go, and I've kind of, me not going fucked things up even worse, is kind of how I would read it at the most base level. But you're right, we could definitely see a scene where in the next episode or something where it's like, this is a flashback to something she did that like we had not yet seen.
I don't even know what she could have done.
She like maybe she in the first stage or something. I don't know. Like,
right. I feel like that was like the first thing that comes to mind. But like, obviously she would like recognize.
Yeah,
at that
which
point, right?
That's not possible. Yeah.
But if it was like maybe she did like a similar thing where she was interrogating Sauron, or who ends up being Sauron or something, and then is like, no, I'm gonna exterminate all the orcs in front of you. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then that's how he ends up getting free. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know, still is completely untied. I just had this weird feeling. I think that it's still just she feels guilty. Yeah. About like the Númenóreans being there, and just pulling people into war that wouldn't end up being into it, even though Theo isn't part of that. But yeah, I do like the idea that like I am looking forward to seeing her return to Linden. And what Gil-galad and Elrond are going to... Because that would end up lining up with him... Because he's going back to Linden to tell Gil-galad, yo, we're all about to die.
They're all going to be in the same place next episode for the first time since episode 1, which is very exciting.
Yeah, except for, obviously, Elendil, Miriel, and then Durin.
Yeah. But the elves will all be together again instead of split up across the map, and that'll be cool. I really like the line she says about how he needs to put don't pick up the burden of the day because it might be hard to put down, which is like what she's been doing ever since her brother died.
Well, and that's very Lord of the Rings, right? Like you could compare that to Gandalf saying to Frodo, like, not all who like his basically when he's like, I wish the ring never come to me. Like it's like a very similar vibe. It felt very Lord of the Rings.
I really like them mirroring the scene from Fellowship where they're hiding from the orcs. They're hiding from Nazguls, but in this they're hiding from orcs. It's just a really good, really well shot, very well staged. Like I really like the multi-level set they have going on, because you get the one shot where like they're below and you can see them like walking around above them. I thought that was really cool. And then that scene is ended with a great line that was really impactful to me from Theo, where she just, it's such a minor line, but she says, we move at first light, and he goes, what light? And I thought that was like,
I liked that line a lot. The line, like 2 lines before that, I really liked, and it felt very old Lord of the Rings, is when it's like, what do you smell? He's like, ashes, nothing but ashes. Yeah. It felt very much like the nothing but maggoty bread. Like it just, I love the orcs, dude. They're so, they continue to be like my favorite part of this. I was literally talking with one of my friends about how, the movies still hold up to this day, right? Like they they don't feel like they've aged really at all, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, really, the only spot where I really feel like there's even any aging is because of Rings of Power.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me last year,
yeah,
I would have been like, no, they're perfect, dude. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing. Like, maybe a tiny bit of CGI, but that's it, right? The only thing, I think Rings of Power has really leveled up the orcs. Like, just how they look, their differences.
Yeah, they feel like individuals instead of just like...
Yeah. And obviously, like, in the Peter Jackson films, they do a great job of, it's all real, right? It's all practical. And they do a good job of, you know, the actors can act through it a little bit, but a lot of the orcs seem very samey looking, especially the Uruks. Like, they look very same. And obviously that's like intentional design, where they're like, yeah, these are supposed to just be like rank and file orcs, where they were bred to be very like similar and like all this stuff. I could see that, but I don't know, man. They really took the orcs up to another level with this, and I think that's really the only thing that's aged in those movies. In just a comparison, like if you watch them, you're not like, oh man, that looks terrible or something. It's just that they look so freaking good in this show.
Yeah, and then I mean, they get back to the encampment. Like, the only other notes I have is that, like, when Theo's in that medicine tent, oh my god, it's horrific. They show they show way more than I thought they'd be willing to. Like, that dude with his face all burnt is like horrific.
We were talking about it while we were watching it again together for note taking. Just like, I don't know, like, well, this is rated like TV-14, right?
This
like,
is a lot.
There is so much blood. Like, this is crazy. Like, I don't know how they get away with this rating. Like, Bezos definitely paid them off. Like, my god.
You said, you want to go to space with me?
I'm going to be honest. I did think Bronwyn was dead for a second. I thought that was her hair. When they showed the hair, I was like, oh my god. Like, that's messed up, bro. Like,
yeah, I did it.
They really faked her death just to have her die off camera. Like, that's
flexing, bro. I'm flexing, bro.
I really thought that because, you know, they're showing all this stuff with Theo.
Yeah.
Like, being like,
they do the best they can to set it up, you know?
Yeah. I believed it. Even if just for a second. It was good.
I thought it was really funny when Arondir, like, okay, like, I really like the reveal of the mom being alive, Bronwyn being alive. Arondir showing up is a little silly. Like, they show us the area that he comes from. Like, we see that part of the tent, and he's not there. And then, like, there
could be another opening, but yeah.
Yeah, he turns around, but, like, it's kind of the staging of how Arondir walks in. It's kind of a hero walk-in.
Yeah,
where he's like,
yeah,
I'm here. And I joked when we were watching the episode the first time, Arondir showed up, and I was like, I'm your daddy now. But I do think it's really funny.
I really liked the reunion.
Like, how Theo hugs Arondir is kind of funny, because Arondir's like, what? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think it's like a sweet little family they've got going on there. Can't wait for Theo to go.
It was like the only
evil.
good thing to happen in the whole episode.
Yeah.
So it was nice to get that at least.
I can't wait for Theo to end up being the Witch King and probably killing like his adopted stepdad or something in the last season. You know, who knows? But it's gonna be bad. That's all I have for this episode.
I think that's all I had. What would you give it out of 10?
I think this is like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty solid. Maybe an 8.
I can't really think of anything besides that CGI. Where I wouldn't even give that as like a minus. Like,
no, I just think it's like
the only thing is I don't like Durin the Third in this.
I don't think there's
like,
anything that
his actor's good. I just don't get his what was even the word? I'm blanking.
His storyline, his like writing, or his decision making. I don't know.
Yeah. Basically, I don't understand his decision making process.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the only thing that I felt like is weak in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was very properly paced, and I liked the beginning shot and ending shot being very creepy Mordor stuff. I don't know, I'd probably give it a 9. Like, I don't really have anything I can really deduct at points besides the Durin thing.
The only reason I would lean towards an 8 is the episode is good. Like, I can't find anything wrong with the episode, but the episode almost, while we were watching it, at a certain point, I was like, okay, this is the setup before the finale. Like, I got to a point where I was like, nothing important is going to happen in this episode. I think it was maybe a quarter, halfway through the episode, maybe a third of the way through. I was like, okay, I see what you're doing for this episode. I'm not waiting for anything big to happen. And I don't think that's a negative, but it feels like we're just kind of walking the path, which I don't think is a bad thing, but it doesn't make it my favorite episode, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I think I can't give it anything lower than a 9 when I'm looking at all of these sets from like.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
I just can't. I can't budge on it.
On the design standpoint, you're right.
From a design standpoint, like acting was great, writing was great. There wasn't anything I was really cringing at. Like obviously, I don't really care about the Harfoot story, especially not anymore that I don't think that the stranger is Sauron. Like it doesn't feel. Not that I don't care about it, but it just doesn't feel as impactful, right? And maybe they'll end up, subverting my expectation with that. But I don't know. There's not really anything.
I think certain storylines in this episode are a 9. Certain storylines are an 8. I think is how I would phrase it. Yeah. So I it's hard for me to like.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just can't. I can't budge on the 9, dude. The ashes, it's crazy. Well, and this is another meta thing that Sean said. Where the producers were talking about the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, that's how I got spoiled.
Very different.
That's how I got spoiled on
that Mountain Doom was gonna pop.
Yeah. When it was gonna pop.
Which makes me think that we will end up seeing Isildur next episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any way we don't see Isildur next episode. All right, so let's round it up for everything. Okay, so on Stranger Front, I think that I hope that I think it's definitely going to be like we're going to be able to know who it is by whether directly or indirectly by the end of the next episode.
Okay,
and
I can agree with that. Yeah,
I think that I hope it's a blue wizard. I'm worried it's going to be Gandalf.
If we don't find out who he is, even from if there's still a lot of gray area, if they do end up showing elves in the Greenwood, then I'm fine with it. I think that's a fine cliffhanger for his character.
Okay. I think on the dwarf front, I think something's going to happen to King Durden III. I think he's going to have a heart attack or something, and King Durden IV is going to have to step up. I think but he's going to have to fight for it because he's technically not the heir. Oh, that's true. Maybe, yeah. That could be like an interesting political storyline over season 2.
Yeah.
Halbrand's going to be revealed as Sauron. I think that the whole thing I was telling, I hope something's going to happen with Isildur where he sees something that he shouldn't have, and I hope that he's going to be one of the people that realizes that something isn't up. I think that would be pretty good. Because I think beyond just the audience knowing that who Sauron is, I think somebody in the show has to know. I think that has to be a level of I think that adds a level of tension to it. I think if just he knows, it's a good. If it's just the audience that knows, I think it's still a good reveal. But I think it's a great reveal if we know and one character knows. Yeah.
I do like when they do that as well. I just don't know how. It's okay. From a full story perspective, I guess I could see how he ends up getting away with Numenor knowing that he's Sauron.
Here's the thing:
now.
I don't think he's gonna be going around. I think Halbrand's gone. I think,
I don't think he shows up to the Southlands again. Yeah,
I don't
except for to be yo, I'm Sauron, what up, bitch? Kill Adar.
I think he might even disappear from the rest of the story and reappear as somebody else again. I don't know.
You think he fakes his death?
maybe he fakes his death or something, and he comes back and we get a different. I mean, maybe it's the same actor playing a different character. I think that'd be kind of cool. I'd be okay with that, as long as they made him up differently enough. But yeah, I think I don't think Hallbrand himself is going to stick around. I think that he's going to, because I think if Hallbrand does stick around and somebody does find out that he's Sauron, then it's kind of fucked. Like we're like it kind of ruins a lot of the story if they know what's up from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I think Hallbrand needs to leave and there needs to be somebody else to trick people. But I don't know. We'll find out next week.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is probably the most excited that I've been for an episode since the first one. Mm-hmm. So
I would agree.
Really looking forward to it. Yeah, we'll see, man. It will be cool. I really hope that they nail this, because if they can nail this season finale, then I think a lot of people will look at the show differently. Obviously we've been pretty positive about the show overall as it's been going on, and there's been a lot of negativity about the show. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that everybody has to like it. Obviously, like there's even people who hate like the Lord of the Rings films, and clearly they're wrong. Clearly they're a million awards wrong, but like yeah. To each their own, right? But yeah, I'm really hoping, just for the sake of, and this is something we talked about a little bit in the bonus episode, with Jesse and with Shane, is that it's clear that a lot of the people, especially in their art and creative works and stuff, and the actors are they're putting a lot of love into it. They're putting their heart and soul, like. They are just clearly putting their very best into it, regardless of how you feel about Amazon, Jeff Bezos, all that stuff, right? Yeah. I think it's very obvious they're putting a lot of love into it. And I think for the most part, a lot of stuff is very similar. Obviously, Galadriel is very different. A lot of the stuff with the elves is very different. But other than that, I think it's been pretty true to, I feel like, the meaning of like Lord of the Rings and what's supposed to happen, right? Like, obviously, it's not as bright and good as like the Lord of the Rings, but that's what's supposed to happen in this age. It's supposed to be an age of taking L's, right? Yeah. And I think the nice, this was such a good thing, scenes are going to be fewer and far between as we go. So yeah, I think next episode is going to be a lot of bad shit happening.
All right, why don't you tell the people where they can find us?
You can find everything from me on Super SpikeGhetti Bros on both Twitch and YouTube. You can also, it's not me, disclosure, it's not me running the Twitter. It's Mike. He runs the Twitter. I hate Twitter. Twitter's a cesspool. But you can find more stuff from us and funny tweets from Mike on Twitter at SpikeGhetti Bros. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Sean, where can they find you?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at Sean_AFK. You guys should absolutely go follow Alex on Twitter, because they made our juiced cover art. That's at ALX_BigBoy. Link in the description for all of these. Go ahead, follow Shane and Jesse from Meadow Vista Media, who are on the bonus episode coming out this week. They did our banger of an intro, and I used it for the outro as well. But
and they're good dudes.
Yeah, they're great dudes. Banger podcast theme. Go follow them on Twitter at MVM_studio, or go to their website, meadowvistamedia.com, or you can just follow Shane on Twitter at Fabio the Iguana.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I will. I think this was a banger episode of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening all the way to the end. Especially you listened all the way through all the plugs that we do the exact same every time. Appreciate and love you guys. I hope you enjoy your 11sies and your luncheon, and we'll see you next week for the finale of Rings of Power. See you next week for Second Breakfast.